The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Dean Lemire, and I am in long-term recovery. I thought I was above heroin addiction. I had a college degree, a loving family, dreams, and abilities. Every day, I justified my destructive actions. At the end, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I was addicted, defeated, and waiting to die. I finally asked for help and got my life back. Anyone, anytime, can recover.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of The Loft. I'm Kathy Bailey-Smith, one of your hosts, along with Amber Logue and Andrea Sebastian. And today we are hosting one episode of a two-part series here on The Loft related to substance abuse. I'm sure you've heard of the recent epidemic related to heroin and opiates. And we're going to be joined by Lisa Vasquez, who is a substance abuse coordinator here for the city of Nashua. So thank you for joining us, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's a topic that we're hearing more and more about. It's been on the campaign trail. It's been on social media, in the news, and it's happening right here in our backyard. And I was hoping, before we talked about what your role is and what you do, that if you could just kind of give us a quick snapshot of what it looks like right now, maybe in New Hampshire, Nashua, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, in New Hampshire, we know that in 2014, we had over 300 deaths associated with overdoses of heroin or opiates. And for 2015, we had over 400. So the numbers keep going up. Also in Nashua, this 2016, we've seen an increase each month of this year has seen record numbers of overdoses and overdose deaths. Because an overdose doesn't mean death. It can mean that there was an intervention, a medical intervention, and they were able to reverse that. But it can mean overdose fatality as well.
And what about the numbers of users or people abusing, not necessarily overdosing? Do we have a handle on what that looks like right now?
We don't really know the number of people using because it would be really hard. People really don't want to disclose that because of legal ramification that might have. Mm-hmm. But we know that the number is really large and that we are not able to treat the number of people that have a substance use disorder at this time in the state. We're 49th in the country for being able to provide services to people who need it when it comes to substance use disorders. Only Texas is able to provide less services than we are.
Wow.
And what's contributed to that? Like, how is that possible for the city or the state not to have more resources available to people? And where's it all coming from?
So it's a really complex problem that's been building over years. If you go back like 20, 30 years, we did have the capacity to treat. We had thousands of beds available in the state for people who had substance use disorder. But right now we have just a little bit over 300 beds in the whole state available for someone who has a substance use disorder. So if somebody is looking for treatment right now, they usually have to wait about 4 to 6 weeks before they are able to enter treatment. And in that time, people can overdose, obviously, many times before they're able to get treatment.
So what are some of the things that you do when you talk about prevention?
So yeah, I'm the substance misuse prevention coordinator, and I like to put that prevention piece in that because that's really my passion and what I focus most on. Prevention is really important because if we can prevent people from having a substance use disorder, we can not only save them a lot of heartache and pain to them and their families, but we also save a lot of financial and human resources because we are decreasing crime, we're decreasing the need to access health care, we're decreasing a lot of negative things that happen in our community. So when I talk about prevention, I don't mean programs that just talk about don't use drugs or these are the effects of using drugs. I'm talking about skill building things as well. I'm talking about leadership skills for children. I'm talking about things that focus on healthy living. So when I talk about prevention, I mean anything that has to do with increasing the health of the public, not just saying no to drugs. Having alternatives to manage their stress, having positive activities to be part of, feeling part of their community, feeling that they're part of their family. Those are all things that prevention encompasses.
And I guess with the numbers, we really aren't doing a very good job in stopping it, are we?
Well, I think that just say no when that time just kind of shifted the way that we were seeing the problem. We thought as a nation that, oh, it's a really complex problem, but we'll fix it really easily with law enforcement. And it's a complex problem, so there's really no easy or one solution that will solve it. It needs really the whole community to come together, and there's a lot of things that need to be put in place, like housing, better health care, and skills for people to be able to get jobs and move forward with their life and re-engage back with their families and their communities.
No, go ahead.
Talking a little bit about or focusing on the prevention side, what are the age ranges of people that you talk to, and when should we start talking to children or to our neighbors or to our friends and family about that?
I talk a lot to parents just because they have access to their kids and they have or exert a lot of influence over their kids. So obviously as a parent you don't have total control over your kids, but you do exert a lot of influence. If you ask kids who their heroes are, it's usually their parents that they look up to. So when their parents talk to them, they do listen, even though most of the time parents think, it goes in one ear and out the other. Obviously, the conversation really should start as young as possible. A lot of people think I'm not going to talk to my 2-year-old about substances or drugs, but they already do. The most important thing is to build a loving relationship with your child so that they know that when they have a problem, they can come to you. But even as a 2 or 3-year-old, we are having prevention conversations even though we don't know about it, because we're talking to them about, oh, you know, this is the difference between a pill and a candy. This is a pill, you can't take this, but you can take a candy. When I give it to you, obviously they shouldn't take candy from a stranger. But it's important to designate as well who can give your child medication so that they don't take medication on their own. You're also talking to your kids about alcohol. If you have it at home, you're telling them, you know, this is an alcoholic beverage, you're not allowed to have it. If it's in the fridge, you're making sure that it's not where they can reach it. So you are having prevention conversations with your child as young as 2 and 3 and 4, even though you're not thinking of it as prevention, you are. And other important prevention conversations that you have with really young kids is wear your helmet, or, you know, you have to stay in your car seat while the car is driving. Because those are safety conversations. And when we're talking about prevention, we're really talking about keeping our children safe, and it's really the same conversation.
I wanted to get back to when you were talking about the role that housing, healthcare, everything kind of comes into play. Can you just elaborate a little bit more? I want to understand that just a little bit more about the problem being so complex that it affects things like healthcare and housing. What does that mean to the community, I guess?
So if someone has a substance use disorder, that substance really takes over their brain. Addiction is a brain disease, so it takes over. I usually like to explain, like, it's I just lost the word. It's like someone taking over what do you call it when somebody takes over a plane?
Hijacks?
Yeah.
Hijacks.
Yeah.
So yes, so someone hijacks your brain. It's the same if someone hijacks a plane, that pilot is not going to go where they're supposed to go. It's going to go where the hijacker tells them to go. So when you are addicted to a substance, that substance is going to tell you what to do. It's telling you, you can't live without me. It's telling you, you need to get the next hit right now. It's not telling you, you really need to pay attention to your job. It's not telling you, you need to pay attention to your studies or your family. So it's really taking over your whole life. So when we get someone into treatment, usually they go for like 5 days to detox, and then they can go to a treatment for about 28 days. 28 days is not going to fix a problem that's been going on for years. So after that person gets out of that 28-day treatment, what do? They've been using for a while. They haven't built their skills to find a job. They don't have, they might not have the right education. They might not have a place to live. So without fixing all those issues, a person is really hard for them to be successful in their recovery. That's really the truth. If they don't have a support system, and right now, a lot of communities aren't really that support system because we have that stigma associated with substance use. And we think people really can't recover, but reality they do. There's a lot, my favorite movie is Anonymous People, and it talks about the 23.5 million people living in long-term recovery in the country. And they're usually quiet. They don't really talk about it. You don't really hear about people who's been in recovery for 20, 30 years, but they are here in the community. They just don't talk about it because they don't want people to see them that way. I think recently, though, more people are coming out and saying, oh, I am in recovery and I've been in a long time, and that really helps people. Not only people that are suffering with a substance use disorder actively, to inspire them and to know that, hey, it's possible for me to stop using and to recover, but also for the community to see, hey, if I can support this person, I can have an impact not only on that person's life, but on our whole community. So right now, if you go to get an apartment, it'll be really hard if you have a substance use disorder and you've been to jail, for example. You're going to be a felon. Nobody's going to want to rent an apartment to you. So where are you going to live? You're going to probably live in a place that allows anyone to live there, so there might be a lot of use around you. And that'll make it really hard for you to stay with your sobriety, to stay within your recovery. And then if you don't have a job, what do you do all day? If you don't have access to getting an education, if you don't have access to even a doctor, I mean, it'll be really hard to maintain your recovery. So that's why I say it's not just one thing that we need. I mean, we can get everyone treatment, but if we don't address all those other issues, are we really going to be successful in the long run? I'm not sure.
What about if you suspect someone is using? What are some of the warning signs that, it's not just your parents with their children, but just in general, anybody?
So for parents, it might be the easiest because you have your kids with you all the time, and nobody knows your kids like you do. Parents know their kids better than anybody else. So you'll notice a change in their behavior. That's the biggest thing for parents to notice, or for anyone in general. If you have a child, for example, a boy who loves going out with their hair gelled, wearing cologne, likes to iron their clothes and look nice all the time, and all of a sudden they don't care about their appearance, that is a really drastic change in behavior. So we really need to investigate what caused that. It might be a substance use disorder. It might be depression. It might be that they're getting bullied. It might be anxiety. It doesn't matter what it is. We really need to investigate and make sure we get an early intervention so that it doesn't progress into something more. So that change in behavior is going to be the first thing that you might look for. But then it depends on the substance. For example, alcohol, I think we all know what somebody who's drinking, what that looks like. They might have, poor coordination, slurred speech, those, red eyes, things like that, and you might smell it on them. So those things you might already know. And for marijuana, the same thing, you might smell it. But now they have these things called e-cigarettes and vaping products. I think we've all heard of them. In Nashua, the Nashua Prevention Coalition actually worked with the school district to do a middle school Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and it was given to all the middle schoolers in Nashua. And the results said that 22% of kids in middle school are already trying vaping products. And the scary thing is that they are nicotine products. You can put nicotine in them, but kids have also found ways to put other things in them. So things like marijuana, concentrated oils, things like that. And the scary thing is that your child can be smoking marijuana with these vaping products, and you wouldn't smell it because it only gives off a vapor that's not scented. So you wouldn't know that your child is using that. And if you can put that into it, what other substances can also be added to that? We don't know. Kids are looking at YouTube all the time and finding out new things that they can do, so it's really scary. As good as it is to have YouTube and access to a lot of information on the internet, sometimes it's scary the things you find there. So we really need to pay attention to what our kids are searching online too.
So, and if you do kind of suspect, what would you think is the best way to sort of approach it, to have the conversation with them? And if then you do find out they're using, what's the next step?
So the first thing I think parents should do if they have if they're suspecting anything, is to get help for themselves first. There's a lot of parent support groups for parents who have kids that are using, and I think that's a great resource to a parent, even if they're just thinking maybe. Because there's a lot of emotions that come into play if you're thinking, my child is using. You might feel some guilt, you might feel anger, you might feel some sadness or anxiety about why did this happen, how did this happen, how long has it been going on. So making sure that you know that it's normal to have all these feelings, and having a support group to say, hey, we've been through the same thing and this is what we did, and have many different people telling you different roads that they might have taken. It'll be really helpful for you, even to how to address that child. The second thing you need to do is obviously investigate, talk to your child, find out a little bit more. Has this been going on for a long time? Is it recent? What kind of treatment will you need? You might need an assessment to find out, is it recent? Do they need like residential treatment? Do they need intensive IOP, or do they just need to see a counselor once a week? It depends on where they are and what kind of person they are, and everyone's different. So each individual treatment needs to be different and geared and tailored to that specific person.
And going back and talking about the leadership skills that you're teaching within the schools, how do you teach kids or direct them when they find themselves in a group of friends and there's the one friend that may be trying to pull everybody else into whatever this new experiment may be? Like, what kind of tips do you give them in that case?
So having your child be confident and assured of themselves is a big thing. So as a parent, helping them as they grow to make decisions on their own is really important. Whether it starts, as a 2-year-old, do you want to wear this blue shirt or this red shirt? That's how they start saying, hey, my decisions matter, and the things that I decide are important. And as they grow, you give them more and more bigger decisions that they can handle, so that you tell them too, I trust in your decisions because we've taught you well, so that you know that they're going to make the right decision. Also, one of the things I talk about too is peer pressure, because we always think of peer pressure as someone telling you, try this, try this, try this. And it might not feel like that for every child. Peer pressure might be they go to a party and everybody has a red cup and they assume everybody's drinking alcohol. And they're like, ooh, I'm the odd man out because I'm not drinking, so let me get a drink. So it might not be so implied or so direct. Peer pressure might be subtle too. So we have to address each kind. And making sure your child knows that it's okay to be different and it's okay to be your own person, and that they're great just the way they are without adding any substance to it. One of the things that, like in general, in our society, we see that to party or to celebrate, we need alcohol. Like, we watch the football game, the Super Bowl, and what does the quarterback say? I'm going to go have a beer. So can you really celebrate without alcohol? That's something that we need to teach our kids. Yes, the most important part of the party isn't the alcohol. It's the people that are there, and they are who make the party great. And because there's alcohol always there, kids might assume what makes a party great is that alcohol. So maybe once in a while having parties without alcohol and showing your kids that, hey, you can still have a good time without it, it's really important.
So
Not
lead by
saying you have to
example.
totally
Yeah.
not drink, but
Right.
once in a while have parties without drinking so that your kids know that it's not necessary to drink to have a good time. That's really important.
Now, is your role primarily to work with youth, or do you also work with adults? Or, I mean, I know not just parents, but
So my job is really to work within the community to help the community come up with their own like prevention plan
okay.
that they buy into because they decided on and they want to work on and they want to make happen. So that's primarily my job, but I do work a lot with the schools and trying to find what programs would work best in that community because we can't have one program throughout the whole state. That wouldn't work because every community is different and every school district is different. So we need to have things and programs that are tailored to each community. So that's where I come in and doing a lot of research and finding out what programs would work for the demographic that we have in this community.
I think I've noticed a change in conversation, and I guess I'm not too familiar with it, but if you can speak to, like, even if someone does OD now, I understand there are medications or something that you can get at your CVS or your Rite Aid or things like that. Are we seeing a lot of that in our communities, or is that something that's happening in other parts of the country?
So the state has bought the drug is called naloxone,
Okay.
and the brand name is Narcan. So you will hear naloxone or Narcan, but it's really the same thing. The state has bought some. So actually on March 18th at Harbor Homes right here on 45 High Street, we will have a Narcan education night. So they will talk to you about what an overdose looks like. They would talk to you about what the medication does and how to administer. They'll teach you how to administer Narcan, and they will not only talk to you about it, but have you try it on a dummy so that you can go home feeling confident that you know how to use it. And people that want to can get a kit. So it's also a distribution.
Are there any programs coming forward that you're seeing that you're super excited about that you think are going to put a dent in this problem?
I think the biggest thing that's making a dent in the problem is the fact that we're talking about it as a public health issue as opposed to a criminal issue. I think that's what's making a big difference. I do like the fact that Nashville has a drug court. I think it's a great opportunity for people to see that jail isn't always the answer and that treatment will be better for a lot of people. And they get the support they need. So they have a whole staff dedicated to the participants of the drug court to help them with housing, getting a job, and getting treatment. Because we need to have all those things in place.
Yeah, not just lock everyone up.
Exactly.
Besides the drug court, what are some other programs available in Nashville specifically for people?
So are we talking treatment?
Treatment, prevention, what are we looking at? What do we have?
So we have Keystone, which is our treatment center, and it has the Cynthia Day program, which is a program for moms with their kids. So they're able to stay, I think it's a year or two with their children living in that program so that they learned more about parenting skills. They get skills on how to get a job, education, and they're able to transition to a place where they can live on their own, and then they can find their own place. So that's a great program, and I wish there were more programs, not only for moms, but for everyone in general that was a little bit longer. Because, like I said, 28 days, you can't solve a problem that's been created over years and years and years. We also have a lot of private, like LADAX, and LADAX are licensed alcohol and drug counselors in the area. It's hard to name them all because there's a lot. We also have the Greater Nashville Mental Health Center does provide drug and alcohol services. They have intensive IOP programs, and they have individual counseling. We have a recovery center here. It's on 0 Kinsley Street, and they provide counseling, and they have a housing like partner that's called Rise Above. We have another way that provides counseling is a counseling center, and it's actually associated with the Gatehouse Sober Community, which is a housing program that helps people live in a sober house and have some kind of routine set for them so that they can learn to establish a new behaviors around non-use. We have Hearts, which is a peer support center. It's for mental health, but they also have AA meetings, NA meetings, and they have a meeting for people who is called Considering Recovery. So people that are not sure if they want to enter treatment yet can go and talk about it and learn a little bit more about what treatment is to see if they're ready for that or not. We have the National Prevention Coalition, like I said, that works within the community and has community partners and volunteers that help out with a lot of the things they're doing. Right now we have SAD groups in all the high schools and the middle schools, and SAD groups are Students Against Destructive Decisions that just restarted. We didn't have them last year. So I'm really excited about that, to have kids not only learn about prevention, but learn that they have the ability to make decisions that are good, and have a group that supports that. So that whole group can support each other and not and be a little bit separated from the whole school. If they feel like a little bit more pressure, they can go back to that group and say, hey, how do I deal with that? And that group will help them out. So I think that that's great. And a lot of leaders come from out of the SAD group, and I'm really excited about that, to see how it will transition from middle school to high school. That's one of the things I'm most excited about right now.
Wow. And one last question I have before we wrap this up. What do we need that we don't have? Like, short list of, okay, this is what we're not doing and we need to be doing this.
So we need money. We need funding, but
Yeah.
to fund what, right? So what we really need is a continuum of care for substance use disorder. We need something that works from prevention all the way to recovery supports. So if someone needs education, they can access it through prevention. If they're just tried a substance, they can get some early intervention. If they need treatment, they can enter there and go to treatment, and then recovery supports, which we have very little of here, but so that people can maintain their sobriety and maintain and stay in their recovery. They need support for that. They need to know that other people are maintaining their recovery. They need supports, like I said, with housing and other things. So we need to have like a seamless system that people can transition from one through the other, and that people can enter in different sections and know how to navigate the system. Right now, that's not it. A lot of people are here, and then they kind of drop off, and then they have to re-enter, and then they don't know the process. So that's what we really need. We need a seamless continuum of care where people aren't dropped off, where service doesn't end and then start over here, and you don't know how to get there. So that's my vision for, in a perfect world. That's what we would have.
Hopefully going forward that, people are starting to listen, and we won't have those horrifying numbers come the end of 2016 or 2017 kind of thing,
Well, Lisa, before we let you go, how do people reach you if they want to learn more about what your role is or what's happening in the community as it relates to substance abuse?
So I am a City of Nashua employee, so you can also always go to the City of Nashua website, but you can always email me at Vasquez, that's my last name, VASQUEZ, my first initial L, at nashuanh.gov. And I usually answer every email, so.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
you.
No problem.
This
Thank you
is
so much for the invitation.
a great
Anytime,
conversation.
it's a conversation I'm sure we can have many times over.
Definitely.
Exactly.
We can talk about this all day.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Loft. Tune in for our next episode where we're going to be speaking with someone who has firsthand experience. And until then, get out and enjoy your community.